Good morning, students. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay, fine. A few students are still to join, and okay, 14 only. I was just going through the last assignment, and many people they have not turned in and they have not submitted their assignment for Friday. Adish, Atoiba, Devanshi, Kshitij, even Rupal, you have not submitted, Tridev and Vivek. So I've not received any Friday's question answer from these people. So I mean, you guys are late now. And as I told you earlier also that these things are definitely carry some amount of marks also. So make sure whenever some question is given, you submit those in the form of assignments, right? So just to start with the lecture, we'll just frequently go through the previous lecture. We discussed about the origin of the viruses in the last lecture, where three main hypotheses were discussed, and we also discussed about certain points where there were certain papers by some people, some publication where how they were, justification was given whether viruses are alive or they are not. So, can Ayushi, can you just tell me that what are the features for any organism to be described in the living category? What are the important points that we consider?
Ma'am, may I?
Who's this?
Vivek, ma'am.
Yeah, Vivek, go on.
Ma'am, reproduction, uh,
Yes,
growth, and development.
yes.
These are, I think, two. I guess
Yeah,
a
these are the
response to
main.
their environment.
Yeah, response to the environment. They undergo different kind of a metabolic processes, and yes, okay, Vivek. Yes, next who will tell me that do viruses conform to this criteria or not? Yes, yes. Adhish.
Ma'am, viruses do conform to those criteria when they show living conditions when only under suitable host organism
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
inside a host organism, and when the
Yes.
living conditions are optimum, they show signs of living.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yes, Nandini, please add on to this. Yes, Nandini, you raised your hand. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Nandini probably left. Uh, okay, fine. Then who will tell me that uh, progressive hypothesis? What was the progressive hypothesis all about? Anyone? Is it Manaswani? Yes, Manaswani.
Yes, ma'am. So the progressive hypothesis is also called escapist, and
Mm-hmm.
basically this theory says that the viruses they originated from any genomic material that tended
Mm-hmm.
to, let's say, escape from a different cell, any other host cell. So
Mm-hmm.
an example of this is technically I think retroviruses, because you had mentioned that last class.
Yeah,
So
they, yeah.
because of the presence of reverse transcriptase, which reverses
Mm-hmm.
the central dogma and everything. So that is the
Mm-hmm.
basis of the hypothesis.
Yes, okay, Manaswini, yes, fine. So, for this hypothesis, basically, they said that we have a transposomes like jumping genes in the humans also, right? So they keep on changing their position. So similarly, they thought the viruses I mean, would be once kind of a jumping genes which kept on changing their position, and within a certain period of a time, they gain certain structural proteins or other things or elements which required to enter a new cell. So they become infectious. After a certain period of a time, they become infectious. Also, could be the that process also. So the second was the opposite one, the regressive hypothesis. Who going to tell me about the regressive hypothesis? Yuvraj, yes, Yuvraj.
Regressive hypothesis it basically follows the existing virus that are mainly involved from a free living organism. It lost
Yes,
genetic information over time.
yes, yes. See, regressive hypothesis. They said that. I mean, they originated via reductive process basically. So they were once very, and this regressive hypothesis is because they believe in this hypothesis because of the giant virus, which is the mimi virus, and which is the one of the largest viruses which have been discovered, and maybe it as big as some of the smallest bacteria also, right? So with this, they thought that they believe that autonomous organisms they developed some kind of a relationship, could be a symbiotic relationship, but over a period of a time, this relationship turned parasitic because they believe that one of the organism it become more and more dependent on the other. So at once free living parasite, they be more dependent upon the host, and it lost the previous essential genes, right? The last hypothesis was the virus first hypothesis. Who going to tell me in just one or two lines what was virus first hypothesis all about? No, Vivek, you've already spoken. Let's give chance to someone else. Shakti, yes, Shakti, go.
Yes, ma'am. So, both progressive and regressive, they assume that cells existed before viruses, but in this hypothesis, it was assumed that viruses existed first before the cells, and with time they
Mm-hmm.
evolved and
Mm-hmm.
became more organized and complex.
Yes. Okay. So at the end, it is also believed that no single hypothesis may be correct, and we don't still have answers to any for the origin of the viruses. We are still looking forward for the many other answers. And regarding many of you have since already submitted your answer. Rest of the others who have not submitted, please submit it, and maybe in next class tomorrow we'll discuss one by one from with each student that what does they actually think about these hypotheses. Yes, Sam, please go on.
Ma'am, did you read mine? Because I
Uh,
triumphed.
yeah, Sam, I did not read any hypothesis yet, but today I'll just read all the hypotheses what I've said, and tomorrow in the class we'll discuss. Okay, so wait till tomorrow. Fine. Okay. So today's lecture is again related to this only. Like we last lecture we discussed about the origin of the viruses, and today's lecture will discuss about the evolution of the viruses. This is very important topic because since see, we all know the viral pathogens and we all know that they are evolving. We know about the coronavirus within these 1.5 or around it will be 2 years around in December. So within that time period, how much that virus has been changed. So that means viruses are evolving. Definitely they are evolving. So what are the reasons for their evolution, how they evolve, what are the different theories, what are the different factors that leads to their evolution, and how because of their evolution, because some of the viruses such as flu viruses, they are evolving so fast, it is becoming difficult for us because we need to keep on developing new vaccines for the new strains which are evolving, especially in influenza viruses. So every year a new shot for a vaccine, like especially in India also it has started. People who are more prone to influenza like diseases or influenza virus, or people who are asthmatic, they are more prone to these flu viruses, right? So every year they get a vaccine. It is recommended by the doctor that you take a vaccine so that the impact is very less. So how does it is impacting, because they are changing themselves in such a alarming rate and such a fast rate. So it is becoming difficult for us also, for researchers also, to develop a newer vaccines. So they are keeping, these viruses, they keep us on the toes always, that you need to look for them, you need to look for the changes, you need to look for the mutations, and then you start working on the development of the vaccines. So how this is all going on, right? So viruses, they undergo evolution and natural selection, just like cell-based life, right? Like we all are evolving, humans are evolving, animals are evolving within a period of a time. We definitely, we all evolve because we want to change ourselves to the existing environmental conditions, or existing whatever condition in which we are living. So evolution is a part there, right? We study evolutionary biology. There are different kind of courses also where it is being explained that how, yeah, human evolution has taken place throughout how plant evolution has taken place. How you studied in botany that initial plant algae, fungi, then pteridophytes, then bryophytes, then how it has evolved, right, from a single not even a filamentous plant-like structures to the proper branches, leaves, and a fruiting and a seed formation. So a proper evolution has taken place within a certain period of a time. It definitely plays a role, important role, right? So viruses, when what happens, it's in this very simple term, let's talk about it. When viruses, they infect a cell, or maybe they humans, or maybe animals, they are infected by two or more viruses. They may swap genetic material to make a new mixed viruses with a unique property. For example, flu strains, they arise. We'll study this in later in the topic, that how does they do that, right? So it is always there, that if even plants, it happens in the plants also. If plants, they are affected by more than 1, 2, 3 viruses, the new viruses, those viruses may change their genetic material, they may change the genetic, and the new viruses might come up this way, right? Then definitely, as compared to when we talk about DNA viruses, RNA viruses, they have a very high mutation rate, and that is why they evolve very fast. For example, the evolution of a drug resistance, we'll talk about drug resistance. We have taken a case study later. So how they have developed a drug resistance in HIV also, right? So see, like I told you, every year we get a different strain of a flu viruses or HIV virus, which cause it become a drug resistance, right? So the only answer to all these questions is that viruses are evolving, they are changing. We talk about the mutations, we talk, these days we are talking about the new strains, like there was a Delta strain and there's another new strain which has come up, that means they are mutating, right? Viruses are mutating, and so they are evolving because they are mutating. So reason for evolution is because viruses are mutating. So that is mutation. The gene pool of a virus population can change over a time. In some cases, virus in populations such as flu viruses, they may natural. What is natural selection? Basically, natural selection is a differential survival and reproduction of individuals due to differences in a phenotype. So it is a key mechanism of evolution. The change in the heritable traits characteristic of a population over a generation. We all are human. We all are not alike. We all are different. We all change. Even we are not similar to the parents, right? We are changing. So even twins also change, except we talk about the identical twins. Still, there are some remarkable visible differences in identical twins also. So that means we are evolving, right? So heritable traits that help a virus to reproduce, such as high infectivity for influenza or drug resistance for HIV, it will tend to get more and more common in the virus population over the time. जैसे जैसे बढ़ता जा रहा है, ये increase होता जा रहा है. All together, new viruses can, come into existence by these processes. So variation in the viruses. Another term we can use is the variation. How they are changing, how there are variations from a earlier strains to this strain. So natural selection can only happen when it has the right starting material. There's a genetic variation, right? Genetic variation means some of the heritable differences, genetic differences in the population. So variation in the population is from the two main sources. There's a recombination and mutation. Recombination means viruses, when two different viruses they are infecting a particular human, they can swap the chunks of genetic material, or they can swap. Here, I'll tell you, explain the influenza viruses, how they are doing it, right? Random mutation, then another thing is, which occurs in the DNA and RNA sequences of the viruses. Mixing it, recombination means they are mixing up. So this is just a simple example where there's a strain A, there's a strain B with a different genome, then they co-infect, person is co-infected with the two different strains, and the recombinant virus which comes out, it has the genomic material from a strain A also and a strain B. A simple classical example that this is how it is happening. So recombination usually happens when two viruses they have infected the same cell at the same time. Since both viruses are using cell to make their new virus particles, there will be a lot of virus parts, including newly made genomes floating around the cells at once. So mixing is possible there, right? So under these circumstances, recombination can take place in two different ways. First, similar region of a virus genome, they can pair up and exchange pieces, physically breaking or reconnecting RNA and DNA. Second, viruses with different segments, they can swap, they can exchange those segments, a process called reassortment. So this is what it is happening in the flu viruses. A reassortment process is being taken place in the flu viruses, though they are coming up with the new strain. So recombination and the influenza. I told you about influenza. Flu viruses, these are called as the masters of reassortment. They have 8 RNA segments and each carrying one or a few genes. So when two influenza viruses, they infect the same cell at the same time, some of the new viruses they made inside of the cell may have a mixed segment. For example, this is just an example I've given. They have human influenza viruses, or there's a bird influenza virus. So these are the two different. So see, pigs are called as a mixing vessels basically, because pigs harbor most of the influenza viruses which may infect us. Okay, so we call them mixing vessels only because if they are having a bird influenza virus also and human influenza virus also, so mixing will take place and possible mixed viruses will come out after that, and then when they will infect, they'll be altogether new strain of the viruses. So pigs in particularly are known as a mixing vessels for influenza viruses. Pig cells can recognize and thus infected by both human and bird influenza viruses as well as pig viruses. So if cell in the pig is infected with two different kind of a viruses at the same time, so they may release a new viruses which has a mixture of presenting material for both human and the bird viruses. This is how altogether a new virus or a new strain is coming up, which could be more infectious or which could be less infectious. Also, it totally depends upon the genome mixing and how they are coming out, right? So this kind of a swap is common for influenza viruses in nature. For example, we know we H1N1 influenza strain or a swine flu, right, which caused pandemic in 2009. H1N1 had a RNA segment from human and a bird viruses as well as pig viruses from both North America and Asia. So this shows the reassortments that occur step by step over the many years to produce this H1N1 strain. Right? So viral mutations. We know that recombinations can affect viral evolution, but then what about mutations, right? Mutation is, again, what is mutation? It is a change in the genetic material, could be RNA or a DNA for virus. And how does these mutations happen? Because during the replication in the viral replication, some kind of a mistakes happen. They are replicating so fast, and there is always chances for an error, right? Replicating error. So because of those errors, mutations can happen. They can take place. So some viruses they have a very high mutation rate, but it is not very true for every viruses. Generally, RNA viruses they tend to have high mutation rate as compared to the DNA viruses. Why this is there? Because most of the DNA viruses they copy their genetic material using enzyme from the host cell, which is called DNA polymerase, which is proof rate. अगर कोई mistake होती है, it will go back, it will correct that, and replication or translation will take place. Whereas RNA viruses using RNA polymerase enzymes, which are not perfect. So if any mistakes which happen during the replication procedure, they are there always. So that those mistakes will give rise to the mutation or a difference in genomes, right? So this is the case study about the HIV drug resistant HIV human immune deficiency virus. HIV virus is a continuing epidemic since many years in India and in many parts of the world. People are still dying because of the virus. But yes, because of the lot of lot of information imparted to the people, to the common people about the transmission of this virus, is why it is happening, and how it can be spread, and how they can prevent spreading these viruses. So people are becoming aware, and even the discovery of the drugs or therapeutics for this virus, the disease burden of the people due to this virus have reduced. People are living their life, they're taking their medicine, and their life has increased due to the use of the medicine, like using them. Right? So HIV is the virus that was acquired in deficiency syndrome. RNA virus very high mutation rate. That means it evolves very rapidly, which leads to the emergence of drug-resistant strains. So it is every now and then number of drugs are being identified for this virus against this virus, but then virus is also becoming very prevalent and it is coming out as a drug resistance. So those drugs, if used again for this virus, they did not work. We need to look for some newer drugs, right? So HIVs, RNA viruses, they have a high mutation rate, lot of the genetic variation. So many of the mutations, see, when mutations happen, they could be harmful to the viruses also. So many viruses, they simply die or they simply don't reproduce further. They fail to reproduce, right? But still, some mutations help viruses to reproduce under specific conditions. For example, a mutation may provide those kind of a mutation, they may provide resistance to the particular enzyme. So that virus will provide it to drug, right? So certain drugs can block the replication of HIV by inhibiting the viral enzyme. So taking one of these drugs will first reduce the viral load, right? The enzymes which are required for the replication, those will be blocked, those will be killed or blocked, so they will not be able to replicate. So after a while, however, the HIV viruses, they bounce and return to high level even though the drug is still present. So in other words, a drug-resistant form of the virus emerges. So the drug keeps the enzyme from doing its job, copying the RNA of HIV into DNA. So if this enzyme is inactive, the HIV can't permanently infect us. This is how some drugs are involved, which can inactivate the enzyme and which can help people in overcoming this disease. Most of the HIV viruses, they have a heavy rated particular drug which is antiviral drug which is being used. However, in a very small fraction of viruses in the HIV population, we have mutation in the gene for reverse transcriptase that makes them resistant to this drug also. For instance, they might have genetic change that alters the drug's binding site on the enzyme, so that drug is no longer available. That alters the. I'm sorry for that. So that drug that is no longer able to latch on and inhibit. So it becomes drug resistant because the drug is no longer able to inhibit the enzyme activity. So this is how they come out as a drug. The viruses with this resistance mutation will reproduce despite the presence of the drug over generation, and they can infect. And also a newer population will now be resistant to the drug. Slowly and steadily, the whole new population, it will become resistant to the drug. So there is a therapy called as a HART therapy. HART means highly active antiretroviral therapy, which is recommended for HIV patients. So if HIV can evolve its way around the drug, how we can stop this virus? We need to look for some other mechanism or some other way of a therapeutics which can definitely help these kind of people who are affected by this disease. So what seems best is the combination approach. That means with 3 or more drugs taken at the same time. So even if the virus will develop resistance, it will develop against one particular drug, not all the 3 drugs which are taken at that time. So in this way, we are able to still manage the virus. So this approach treatment is called heart therapy. The drugs given in a heart cocktail. Cocktail is a mixing of a drug. They typically target different parts of the HIV life cycle. So, they are confusing the virus also. Even if at the later stages, virus tries to change or evolve, it might be against one particular drug, not against all the 3 drugs or 4 drugs which are being used in the combination. So remember, heart therapy, it is being used in the HIV patients. So heart approach works because, yeah, it is unlikely that any one HIV virus in a population will happen to have 3 mutations that give resistance to all 3 drugs at the same time. This is how we are trying to fool the virus, and we are trying to overcome the virus, or maybe just trying to move ahead of the virus in order to stop it. Although multi-drug resistance form of viruses do eventually evolve, multi-drug combination considerably slow the evolution of resistance. But then we need to look for the more and more newer options of the drugs so that we can again stop that virus to some extent, or manage that virus to some extent, right? So viruses evolve faster than humans. Why is this the case? See, we read about the HIV, it's a very high mutation rate. Then other factors which contribute the fast evolution of viruses are the population size and the rapid life cycle. They multiply very fast, and the number which are being produced are enormous, very large number of progeny which they produce, right? The bigger the population, the higher the odds that it will have a virus with a particular random mutation. For example, one for drug resistance or high infectivity on which natural population can act. So also viruses, they reproduce very quickly. So populations evolve on a shorter time scales than their host. We don't evolve that fast, right? Humans don't evolve, or animals don't evolve that fast. So this is why. Then another important example is of influenza viruses, right? There are basically 3 types of influenza viruses: A, B, or C. All these 3 viruses infect humans. But the virus A, virus A is more important, and most of the viruses changes they takes place due to because B and C only infect humans, but influenza A virus can infect pigs, birds, or other animals also. So this is how the mixing can take place, and these viruses, they can lead to pandemics or epidemic like situations. So influenza viruses consist of 7 or 8 RNA segments which are enclosed in the envelope of proteins, and mutations in viral RNA and recombination of RNA from different sources, as I've told you earlier, that these 8 RNA segments of a protein, they contain 2 different types of proteins basically. So those proteins, they get exchanged in the newer viruses or a newer strain. So this is how it happens. So there are basically 2 common terms that we use. There is an antigenic drift and antigenic shift. So what is antigenic drift? We are going to study now. So what happens, influenza viruses, they evolve in a gradual way through mutations in the gene that relate to the viral proteins. I told you they have 2 proteins, HA protein and NA protein. HA is heme gluten, and NA is the neuraminidase protein, right? So these mutations may cause the virus outer surface to appear to the host previously infected with an ancestor strain of the virus, different, right? These proteins are on the surface. So in such cases, what happens, if antibodies, we are vaccinated against some virus, for example, previous strain of a flu virus, or even if we are infected by a virus, antibodies are produced in our body, right? So in such case, antibodies which are produced by the previous infection with the ancestor strain cannot effectively fight the mutated virus, and the disease will take place, right? So for example, 2009 influenza pandemic was caused by a H1N1 virus. As mutation accumulate in future generation of the virus drifts away. It moves away from its ancestor strain. So this is called antigenic drift, that it has changed. It has changed. Now the proteins, they have changed themselves, and it is drifting away from its ancestor strain or the original strains. So antigenic drift is one reason that flu vaccines often need to be created for each flu season. That is why every year they recommend flu vaccines. Scientists, they try to predict which changes are likely to occur currently circulating flu viruses. They try to study those viruses. So they try to create or design vaccine for those viruses. And sometimes those vaccines would work and sometimes those vaccines won't work if changes have taken place in another way, right? Then there's another term which is called antigenic shift. So antigenic shift is the process by which two or more different types of influenza A, they combine to form a virus which are different from the strains, ancestor strains. Now, new virus that has a new HA protein or a new NA protein or a subtypes, basically, right? So, antigenic shift can result in a global disease spread or a pandemic because humans will have a few or no antibodies to block the infection. However, if the new influenza A subtypes, they do not easily pass, transmission rate is low, that means then the chances are there that disease outbreak will be limited. But if transmission is very high between people, then the disease can lead to the epidemic or a pandemic like situation. So antigenic shift basically takes place, it occurs by genetic recombination or reassortment which happens in influenza viruses. So as I told you earlier also, that when one person is affected by two or more influenza A viruses, they infect the same host, they combine their genetic material, right? So as I told you that why influenza A virus is more harmful, because it can infect birds, it can infect pigs and humans. So major antigenic shifts can occur when these virus types, they can combine. For example, pig flu virus and the human flu virus could combine in a bird, resulting in a different flu type. And if the virus infect humans and is transmitted among them, then a pandemic can take place, right? And second, an influenza A virus can jump from one type of organism, for example, bird, to another organism such as human without undergoing major genetic changes. So this can also happen. So if the virus, they mutates in human, they can easily spread among the people, then also a pandemic can takes place. So in all the cases, there is an antigenic shift which produces a virus with a new HA or NA subtype to which humans have no other way of pre-existing antibodies, right? So once scientists are able to identify a new subtype, a vaccine can generally be created that will provide protection from the virus. So new vaccine, that is why every year they study the genome of the virus, then they study how much mutations or how much recombination or reassortment has taken place in that particular strain of the virus. See, that can only be identified once we sequence the virus genome, right? When we sequence the virus genome, then we know what are the changes or mutations or what are any reassortments which has taken place, and then only we can go for the development of the vaccine. A new vaccines can be developed, right, in that way. So why, another question as that this is also important, that why does antigenic shift occurs only with influenza A virus but not with B and C virus? Why does this happen? See, I told you, influenza A is the only type of the virus which can infect wide variety of animals, humans, birds, pigs, dogs, and horses. So recombination possibilities therefore are very low or non-existent with influenza B and C viruses, right? So a pandemic, just a moment, I have to take this call, just a moment. Okay, so we were discussing that why antigenic shift occurs only with A and not with the B and C viruses, though A, B, and C, they all infect humans, because influenza A is the only virus which infect variety of the animals or birds or pigs and dogs and horses. So there are chances that recombination will take place, and B and C, because they are infecting only humans, so there are not chances of any recombination or such kind of possibilities, right? So, for example, H5N1 influenza A virus, they spread from infected birds to human. They result in a serious human disease. But the virus has not evolved to be easily spread. This virus has not evolved to be easily spread among humans. So that is why H5N1 pandemic has not taken place. Otherwise H1N1 की तरह होता, spreading भी ज़्यादा होता, तो एक epidemic situation was possibility. A possibility of a pandemic or epidemic was there. And moreover, these flu viruses, they have more, you know, because of their transmission rates. First, because they are changing, they are evolving, they are mutating, they are or every now and then we are getting new strains. And second, their transmission rate is also very high, right? They are transmitted by the droplets, they are transmitted by the you sneeze, face is not covered, they are transmitted there. About coronavirus, you see the transmission rate is so high that there are some studies which are being conducted about from some hospitals also. It's not about India, I'm talking about some other countries, that the virus particles they found virus particles on the in the hospital beds, in the hospital corridors, or especially those wards where only for the corona patients they were, despite of the fact that there was lot of cleanliness, lot of ethanol using for sweeping of the places and cleaning the places every now and then, still these viruses were, or these virus particles were found, right? So this is why if after taking so many precautions and care, these viruses are still there and their transmission, there are chances that the transmission, they are transmitted very fast between the humans also, right? So this is why we, in this pandemic also, we are telling that wear mask, you use social distancing, don't talk, don't crowd anywhere, because there are chances. If see the problem, what is the problem? The major problem is here in this case of coronavirus also. See, it is also flu virus. The major problem is that even asymptomatic people, for example, there's a person A who is infected by a virus, but it is not showing any kind of a symptom, but there are chances. See, he might not be showing symptom. It could be due to his good immune system. It could be some other reasons. He could have been previously infected by the virus, and there must be some kind of antibodies in his body already developed. So not much symptoms, but he is he is capable of transmitting the virus. So even if we are talking to someone, we know that there is no symptom, he is not coughing, he is not showing any other symptom, but if the virus is already there, asymptomatic infection is there, that person can 100% efficiently transmit the virus to any healthy person, right? So that is why it is being recommended that we should be careful. I mean, I was watching the news also yesterday. I've seen the major part of the India towards the south side. I was checking that the cases are emerging. The cases are again increasing. The cases, number of people who are getting infected, it is rising. 35 or 40 something was maybe day before yesterday. So that means we need to be again careful, because we were warned by the international organizations, also WHOs also, and Indian AIMS KJO is the director, Dr. Randeep Guleria also. He is keep telling people that third wave will come, and we don't know yet whether the third wave will come and it will affect as much as it affected in the second wave. We are not sure about that, but then we need to prepare ourselves in according to the second wave only, because in the second wave the maximum loss of life was there. There was many people, they lost their lives. So that's why we need to be very careful for taking all kind of a preventions and care, that we should not go out, we should not meet people, we should wear masks, we should wash our hands regularly, we should sanitize ourselves, right? So these are the things which are being required, right? So this is all for today's lecture, and today's lecture's assignment you have not finished the yesterday's Friday's assignment also. So how I can give you today's assignment, right? So those who have not finished it, please do it so that tomorrow we can discuss this topic again. Assignment that I want to discuss, basically, I want to discuss whatever you think in the class so that we all can see, and I'm sure the many new things and many new theories or many new hypotheses will come. Many will argue in favor and many will argue against those. So that is why I've given you that question. So just try to do that so that tomorrow we can take up this question, right? So that's all for today's lecture. Viruses evolve like humans or like any other living people. Viruses change. There are two main reasons. They are recombinations and mutations. Recombinations is the exchange of a genetic material, right? When it takes place is called a recombination. Mutations means changes in a genetic material, and mutations are usually due to, because the viruses, they replicate very fast. So because of that, number of mutations can happen in the viruses. So this is, and RNA, I told you the reason also, that RNA viruses, they mutate fast as compared to the DNA viruses. So there are chances that when RNA viruses, they can cause epidemics and pandemic like situations, and we need to develop vaccines or other kind of therapeutics against these kind of the viruses more efficiently and more frequently, right? So it's open for discussion. If there's any question, please raise your questions. Okay, fine. No question. Just go through this chapter. I know this is a little bit new, but I'm sure you're studying immunology also, and virology and immunology are cross disciplines. Many things you study in immunology, you study in virology also. So that is why these two courses are kept in the same semester so that you can correlate. You can, correlate your study. You'll study ELISA, you study antigen, you study antibody in the virus immunology. You'll study how these are being used here in virology. So these are cross-connected courses. Try to pay attention, and if you feel, even if after going home and use, after the classes, you go and see that this particular concept is not clear, next day or in the next class, whenever we meet, you can always ask for the discussion. We can always repeat the particular topic, right? So all of you, please, yes, Nehal Joshi, please go on.
Ma'am, can you explain the hard drug resistance again?
Again, oh, no worries, I'll explain. See, heart drug resistance therapy is basically based on the concept that you use multiple drugs to target a particular one virus. What happens usually when we use a single drug for a virus, after some times the virus become resistant to that particular drug because it is multiplying, it is changing its genome, and at a certain time it becomes resistant to a particular drug. So that drug will not be useful. So there's no use of giving that particular drug to that person. So heart therapy is basically they give a multiple drugs, maybe 2 3 drugs cocktail. That is why it is called as a cocktail. That means it gives a combination of a 2 or 3 or maybe more drugs, and those drugs they target the different parts in a life cycle. आपकी life cycle होती है, attachment होता है, penetration होता है, replicating. So one drug may be acting at a replication form, replicating when virus is replicating. The another drug is preventing it from the attachment, or other ways, right? So the main reason for using a heart therapy is because they say that it is very not possible, or it is very less chances that one HIV virus in a population will have 3 mutation that will give resistance to all the 3 drugs at the same time. So this possibility is very less in this case. So if even if it becomes resistance, it will become resistance to one drug, then other 2 drugs are still working there, right? We have still 2 more drug or 3 more drug to work against that virus. So multi-drug resistant forms of the virus, they usually don't evolve, or even if they evolve, it takes a lot of time for these kind of the viruses to evolve, right? So this is how we are trying to fool the virus by using multiple drugs at the same time, so that virus also get confused, and even one drug is not working, 2 or 3 other drugs they are working, and we can manage the virus to a certain level, right?
Okay, ma'am.
It is, see, sometimes what happens, sometimes in case of a severe bacterial infections also, doctors prescribe 2 or 3 antibiotics sometimes, because sometimes they are little antibiotic resistance bacteria are also very common these days. So mostly in certain kind of infections, doctor give combination of a 2 or 3 antibiotics, so that even if it's resistance to one particular antibiotic, 2 or maybe another antibiotic will work. So cocktail of a medicines is being provided, so that maybe if one is not working, 2 other are definitely going to work, right?
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Yes. All of you, please switch on your camera for the attendance. Adhish,
Present, ma'am.
Ayushi,
Present, ma'am.
and Sam.
Present, ma'am.
Guys, all of you, please switch on your camera. Ishita,
Present, ma'am.
Janvi,
Present, ma'am.
Kshitij,
Present, ma'am.
Manaswani,
Present, ma'am.
Namrita,
Present, ma'am.
Nandini,
Present, ma'am.
okay, we have Nehal,
Present, ma'am.
Rupal,
Present, ma'am.
Sahiba,
Present, ma'am.
Sanjana,
Present, ma'am.
Shakti, Shakti, no, Shivani,
Present, ma'am. Present, ma'am.
Tanvi,
Present, ma'am.
Ridev,
Present, ma'am.
Vivek,
Present, ma'am.
Yukta,
Present, ma'am.
Yuvraj.
Present, ma'am.
One student is missing, है ना? Who is absent? Manaswani? Nehal, Sanjana.
Ma'am, I'm present.
No, you are present, I know, but I can see only 21.
Athoiba nahi hai.
That, huh?
Athoiba.
Athoiba. Okay, fine. Anyways, I'm downloading the attendance also. I'll see that. Okay, students. So let's meet tomorrow for the next lecture. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.